Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show. Hi, I'm Paul and I'll be your host this evening. But yes, not only host, but also the guest and all the expert opinions and all that kind of stuff. Because yes, I'm on my own this evening for the DrivingMaul show. We will be covering off on some news around the Australian government funding for Fijian rugby. And then we'll have a chat about international rugby. We might touch on the Oceania Sevens as well. There's various players heading overseas that have announced it recently, and we might even talk about Club Rugby as well. So those are the topics that we'll be covering off on this evening. Don't forget, you can join us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 8 p.m. every Tuesday. Good evening, Simon, there in the live chat, and also you can listen to us as a podcast as well. Also, if you would like to support the New Zealand Sport Radio, then you can do by becoming a Patreon over at patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio on that one. Yes, let's, well, I won't quite kick into it because you know what? I have got a late arrival coming in from his car, the homeless man himself. It is Stephen Harris. How do you think, sir?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Paul. I couldn't leave you hanging out to dry this evening, mate. So even though I am running a bit late, I thought I'd check in with you. But as always a privilege and a pleasure to be on the show, Paul.
Thank you very much. And hopefully you've got your engine running and your heater on, because it's a nippy night tonight for you to be sat in your car. I must say, I've got my fire burning away nicely in the kitchen there with the fan going to spread the heat around the house. So great. I'm on the lemon waters, or better known as gin and tonic. You're obviously driving, sir, so you've got to behave yourself. Been down the gym again?
Pardon, Paul, I just missed you there.
Oh, sorry, you've been at the gym again?
Yes, I have.
While you're in the car?
Just trying to get it working whenever I can at the minute. So all good. Very good.
So at the weekend, obviously, we had the Maori All Blacks versus Samoa, or sorry, the way around, Samoa versus the Maori All Blacks. We also had the British and Irish Lions versus Japan, the top 14 final, the Gallagher Premiership final. What was your rugby weekend like?
Oh, Paul, I probably didn't take in as much as rugby as I normally do. Obviously, I normally get out to watch a bit of club footy, but just been having some very big weeks in recent times, but still following a lot of the club competition. Hopefully, if we've got a bit of time, we'll touch on a little bit of the club rugby results from around the Blues region. But sit back and my rugby viewing pretty much started actually on Saturday morning when I took in the final between Toulon and La Rochelle. So. Listen, fantastic result for Toulouse, not Toulon. Toulouse, of course, Jerome Kynor, the legend himself, picking up another title by taking out the top 14 in French rugby, and of course the Māori game Saturday night. Had a little bit of a look at the British Lions and their warm-up game against Japan, and tried to hang in and watch a bit of Major League Rugby on Sunday afternoon. But I was round about Sunday lunchtime. I forget the game was on. I think Utah were playing, but they took out the victory. Just escapes me who they were playing at the time. I couldn't exactly say the standard was the highest, but I think probably the big controversy that came out of that particular game is one of the home players in terms of the way they spoke to the referee. Listen, at the end of the day, the referees are the sole judge of time and what goes on the field, and whether we agree with them or not, it pays to at least treat them with a bit of respect.
No, absolutely, and and hats off to the captain who told the referee to send the player off. The referee said, "Look, if you talk to me like that again, I'll be sending him off." The captain was like, "No, send him off now. I'm going to have a word with them." So hat tip to the captain there. Yes, we cannot be treating referees like that. We have a shortage of referees, and we need them to play the game, folks. So let's look after them as best we can. So Toulouse, double champions this year, beating La Rochelle in both the the Heineken Champions Cup and also the top 14. So double winners there. So congratulations to them. Aaron makes the comment that the only team Jerome didn't win the title with is the Blues. So sad. I'm not sure about that. I mean, which who did Jerome play for in the NPC? And would he have picked up a Maritime Cup or an Air New Zealand or whatever it's called back then title?
Yeah, for some reason, Paul, I'm just wondering if he was in that 2003 Blues team, but maybe that was a little bit early. If I recall, I think probably the likes of Xavier Rush played number 8, and I can recall Justin Collins being in that side playing in the number 6 jersey. So maybe that was just before his time, but I stand to be corrected. That was 17.
He started with the Blues in 2004, so he just missed out on that one.
Yeah. Just a year before, just a year after, didn't he? So he probably collected the years that they were on the slide, so to speak. That's a credit to him for making the All Blacks from a Blues side that didn't always perform.
And to be fair to the Blues, I'm not sure if he would have picked up a top league title with Toyota Verblitz or not on that side of things either. But yeah, he's clearly. Fantastic time with Toulon recently. Sorry, with Toulouse recently. Gee, I'm catching your thing here. With Charlie Firmaina, also a member of that squad as well. So good to see them doing well over in Europe.
Yeah, there are a few boys that played in Auckland. Of course, let's not forget Joe Takori as well. And if you can remember him giving the salute to the French president when they were being introduced at the top of the game, I thought that was quite hilarious. But of course, Joe Takori was one of those players originally. Looked like he'd go on and play for Auckland and New Zealand, but from what I understand, actually turned down an opportunity to play for Auckland and the Blues to chase his dream of playing for Samoa. So very refreshing.
Also, I mean, that salute thing is something the French team have done as part of their try celebrations. But also, I'm assuming with COVID that shaking hands with the president isn't allowed. So that was probably why they had that the salute instead. So yeah, wonderful for him then. Previously at Cast before moving on to Toulouse, and as you say. 37 caps with Samoa, so yeah, good to see that as well. Macron checks a load of hands during the game, so maybe it wasn't shook loads of hands during the game, so maybe it wasn't a handshake thing, but there we go. It's on that one. So that's kind of. I obviously watched the Samoa Maori All Blacks game, and then also watched the entirety of the Lions versus Japan. But that was the sum total of my rugby from the weekend on that one. Let's kick off with the Lions versus Japan. Then went out to 28-0 lead. Japan scored a couple of tries. Trying a penalty to bring back to 28-10. But really, I think a lot of I think the stories from Japan's side were listening to Richard Freeman's Twitter feed. He was mentioning that perhaps Japan picked more on reputation than on current form. And look, that is the first time that they have played rugby since the Rugby World Cup. So, not surprising really that perhaps a bit of a disjointed effort, particularly on defence for Japan in that game.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, Paul. I think it took them a long time to find their mojo, and it was probably about 60-odd minutes before some of the moves that they'd basically put together were just starting to click, and especially those moves, they just seem to get on the outside of the lines at times. And of course, the exciting winger that they've got, who just escapes me, his name was just. He was absolutely fantastic. Every time he got the ball in his hands, he either got over the advantage line, but just a wonderful ability to beat beat players, and even when he has to go looking or finding space. But there was some nice moves that had Tony Brown stamped all over them.
Yeah, and look, it was either Tuat Fafita or Matashima in there for the wingers. But Himeno did not start nocturnal rights. Hi there in the live chat. But look, I think there's also an element here of he was only a couple of weekends or even a weekend before playing in the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman final. So look, he's hardly been with the squad, so unsurprising that he's coming off the bench rather than starting and not being he's not been part of the build-up. So you kind of expect that side of things to happen. On it, we'll come back to the Lions in a moment because Simon Hughes has already jumped onto the next topic that I was going to sort of lead this into. I'm trying to have a kind of a natural flow here about Japan and joining the Rugby Championship, which has come up in the news from an interview with the Australian chief executive Andy Marinos, who mentioned that there is a plan for New Zealand and Australia, in particular, I think also the South Africa to a certain degree, to try and play Japan more frequently over the next 2 years, and to use that as a guide as to how their performance is going, and whether they are of a standard to join into the Rugby Championship. Also, as he says, that you've got to track and look at the commercial side of things. One of the problems with Japanese rugby is that the Japanese Rugby Union has tend to be, I think, I'm not sure if it still is, but until recently, at the very least, if not still, run by amateurs rather than professional people. And if you're not a full-time professional trying to run an organisation of that size, trying to be commercially successful, and therefore not be a drain on the Rugby Championship. Look, Japan's got all the pieces there. Absolutely, it's got the audience, it's got the players, it's got the right coaching staff. The problem has been their administration in trying to tie those together in the past, as we saw with the Sunwolves. Look, it's good to see that Australia and New Zealand and hopefully South Africa as well will be playing them more often, and that they have got a pathway to bring Japan into the Rugby Championship.
I agree. Anything that can strengthen their game has got to be a good thing. I mean, to say that they have definitely got the makings of a very, very good side, and maybe it's also a case also for Jamie Joseph to really start picking on form. That I read an article about Kazuki Himeno with the season that he had at Super Rugby and what he took out of it. If you could every year or two get a Japanese player rugby maybe playing in Super Rugby and just giving them the ability to take their game to another level, it's got to be a good thing. And if they are playing New Zealand and Australia on a consistent basis, it's got to be good for them as well. Dare I say it? We'll probably also get the question asked about Pacific Island. What about Pacific Island of rugby as well? But you and I both know, Paul, it comes down to the old Doleros at the end of the day.
I don't worry. That's another. You're jumping ahead. I've got that as a topic to cover off on as well. Look, Japan now go on to play Ireland this coming weekend, so it'll be interesting to see how they've built and grown upon the what do you call it? Upon the game with the Lions. Now they had more time together, bringing players like Himeno back into it. So it'll be interesting for Japan up against Ireland. Ireland obviously will be missing their British and Irish Lions players who have flown down to South Africa, and we'll come back to British and Irish Lions in a second. It will be interesting to see how they go there next weekend as well. On the Pacific Island, one of the things that Marinos said was Japan or any expansion opportunity would be something we'd look at post the Rugby World Cup. So it's 2024, which, unlike previous expansions, where there have been kind of done at the last minute or contractions have done at the last minute. It's good to see they're thinking and planning a number of years out and actually building towards it rather than it being a last minute thing. So that's got to be a good sign that they are thinking longer term, even if they don't know what the structure of the Super Rugby is next year. At least they are thinking longer term in the Rugby Championship. But the other thing, and by the way, when he says Japan or any expansion, obviously opens it up to the Pacific Islands, like you say, Stephen. One of the things that has been announced by the by the Australian government is that they're putting funding forward to support Fiji's entry into Super Rugby and Super Rugby W.
Wow.
Which is fantastic news. So great news there that the Australian government is getting behind that. Now, if they're getting behind Fiji from that point of view, you can imagine that them and World Rugby would be encouraging the Sanzar to think about Fiji from a rugby championship point of view as well. Now, there's a difference between thinking of it and actually it happening. But look, Fiji are playing New Zealand twice in the next month, so it'll be interesting to see how competitive they are, even if they are missing a couple of players due to European commitments on that one. So, but great news that whilst we've had question marks around the Fiji Drua and Moana Pacifica about their financing, it looks like, at least on the Drua side, that it's coming together.
Yeah, it's great to see, and we know the amount of talent Fiji has. There is just such a sprinkling of Fijian players, even throughout right here in New Zealand, who have played to a decent level. And whether it's been in Mitre 10 Cup or Super Rugby, and once again, same in Australia. There's a lot of good Fijian players around, and not to mention that other pathway that they've got is through their sevens program as well. There's a few players that have come out of sevens and gone into 15s. Got to be a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, Simon says it's the Australian government trying to buy Fijian sort of international influence because China's gone and built a port there. Well, hey, maybe that is what it is. But hey, if that's what it takes to grow rugby in the in Fiji, Fijian rugby globally, then so be it. Beggars can't be choosers, I'm afraid, in this one. if there's money going to be available, if that's what it's for, that's what it's for. Yeah, so great news there. That's and whilst I think initially Rugby Australia was kind of reticent about the way that Super Rugby is expanding with the Fiji Drua and with Moana Pacifica, because it was purely driven by New Zealand rugby, and Rugby Australia were left out of those discussions. It does look like that all the comments are talking about now is like, if we have a Super Rugby AU and a Super Rugby Aotearoa again next year, then they're talking about Fiji Drua being based in Australia and being part of the Super Rugby AU. So you've got to say, from that point of view, that look, it's heading in the right direction, isn't it? There, Stephen, on those sort of things.
Yeah, these teams, whether it's Moana Pacifica or Fiji Drua, are going to need a lot of support, not just financially, but I think they're also going to need some help in terms of players who want to play for these particular franchises, younger players who need to be, just supported and pushed in the right direction.
Absolutely. Now, as we're talking about the British and Irish Lions and also with that game with Japan, and also Super Rugby Aotearoa, I'd just like to point out, I take a lot of flack on this show around my pronunciations. And I agree, they're not as good as they could be or should be entirely. But I would like to point out how much better I am than professional commentators who try to say Aotearoa, because this is what you heard if you were listening to the British and Irish Lions versus Japan. That was supposed to be Aotearoa. If you've most of you, if you caught that last bit, I'll just give you one more time so you can just understand how wonderful I have integrated with the Pacifica language. See, so. Look, when I say wonderfully, I am joking. I understand I've got a lot of work to do on that side of things, but it is very difficult for some of us around the sounds. And yeah, he didn't do a very good job, did he, in the on the Lions broadcast?
Well, that's pretty much the difference, Paul. He gets paid a decent. A really decent salary to basically practice this name, and it's listen. You're only a phone call away from somebody who can help you out with the correct pronunciation. I know, without sort of throwing glasses and stones and glass houses, you always make your best effort to find out the pronunciation of a particular player or a coach. It's very much a respect thing. Sometimes maybe the people you don't go to are the managers of team. They just give you nicknames, and no, that doesn't really help. And we always take into account, and very respectfully, as we do here on New Zealand Sport Radio, of the pronunciation of any name in general, Paul.
The and one of the and I look forward to going up to the Northlands club final day and have a go at some of the names up there, but I'll have you by my side to look after me on that one. And let's be honest, we have had to explain to, or have had to get my mum to send in pronunciations for you on how to deal with how to say Huddersfield, for example.
Huddersfield. Oh no!
So yes.
Sorry,
anyway.
Linda.
But going back to the Lions side of that Lions Japan game, look, for the Lions, this obviously one of the better performances by the Lions in a pre or an opening tour game. If you think back to how they performed against the Presidents or the provincial 15,
Provincial Barbarians,
Provincial Barbarians 4 years ago, where they didn't put together a great performance. To go out 28-0 up, to show some good combinations, I think was this was a good performance by the Lions on their first hit out.
Yeah, very good in terms of what I did enjoy about their performance. Paul, I think they were down to 14 men, not because anybody got sent off or anything. I think just with injury, so that might have just been a little bit of a ploy by the coaching staff, also just to see how they handle that sort of pressure. And you've got to say, to only really concede one try when Japan pretty much had the lion's share of the possession and field position during that time. They're to be given a lot of credit. Not only that, losing your skipper really early in the piece as well, and as it panned out, it was a tour-ending injury as well. So you've just got to find your mojo again when things like that happen.
Now, look, with Alwyn Jones, I think the Lions coped relatively well with his when he was replaced with the extra lock. No, it couldn't be the extra lock. The extra lock was playing different game. When Courtney Laws came on and replaced him, I thought that the Lions did fine quite well. The problem they really had, for my mind, and why I think they stopped scoring was when they lost Justin Tipperick, who was the only 7 in the match day 23. They lost him initially, what was called a stinger, but unfortunately, get another tour-ending injury for him. And when you got Tulipe Falatau on one as a 6, look, he's an 8. He's definitely in the 7 position. He's an 8. You've got Ty Byrne, who's naturally a lock on the in the number 6 jersey, and in the 8 position you had an 8. I've gone blank to his name. I want to say Connor, but it's not Connor. But it's something like that. I'll look it up just to make sure I've got it. But Conan, thank you, was the number. So you've basically got 2 8s and a lock as your back row forwards, and yeah, they lost a lot of impetus when that happened. So I think that was a bit of a problem for the Lions. But hey, they came through anyway. As you say, a tour-ending news for Alwyn Jones, unfortunately, who has been replaced by Beard from Wales. And also a tour-ending injury for Justin Tipperick, who's been replaced by Navidi from Wales. Now, to me, that was a bit of a surprise, Navidi coming in, because Navidi hadn't been selected initially due to a shoulder injury, and they reckon he wouldn't be back in time for it. So a bit of a surprise to see him in there. Beard, a number of people are surprised by he's there because they didn't go for Ryan from Ireland, who actually is also injured, and they didn't go for Gray from Scotland. But as Wayne Gatland said, as Gatland said, you can't you can't coach 6'8", and with Ty Burn being picked at 6, I think we can see the way he's going. He wants 2 big lumps in the second row, and he's going to be playing a lock at 6 to combat the size of the South African pack. So, not surprised by the way that by the names that he's selected from that point of view for the lock replacement. So, we're going to look at it. We're going to see a big Lions pack take on what is going to be a big South African pack, aren't we, Steve?
Oh, very much so. When you think you've got somebody like Steph Toy who could also slip into the locking position. Don't forget he was the player of the year back in 2019. Seems like such a long time ago.
So World Player of the Year, by the way, folks.
Yeah, exactly. World Player of the Year, and he also took time out as well. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of form that he comes back in. You kind of look at the fact that they've recalled the 2 Steins, Francois Stein and Mornay Stein. Pretty much tells you they're going to arm wrestle this if they have to. It's as simple as that. Think back to their performance against England in the final of RWC. Systematically broke them down, battered them up front, then got the high kick game working, and created a bit of scoreboard pressure. So there's no great secret to how South Africa are going to play.
No, absolutely. So, not surprised there by the replay. Well, I'm surprised by Josh Navidi purely on the injury side of point of view, not from the playing point of view. I didn't think he was going to be ready. So that's, but not surprised by Beard's call up at all. There was a bit of a surprise in the captaincy though. So the captaincy has gone to Conor Murray, who is the Ireland scrum half. Now, if you think about the sort of captaincies we've had, Alwyn Jones, with I've gone blank as to the Welsh captain who was the flanker, and before that, Sam Johnson, Sam Warburton, I think, before Martin Johnson. So look, it's always been big forwards, not just forwards, but big forwards as well. So it's going to be interesting. So it's a bit of surprise there. We've got a scrum half, but I guess 2 things about Conor Murray's selection. One is he is an automatic selection into the match day 15, which very few other players are. Mario Toji was someone that a lot of people thought would be the captain and would be the replacement for Alwyn Jones. And yes, I can see that one. I think the reason that he might have been left out is that the Saracen boys only joined the squad last week. So they've missed the first couple of weeks I think the first couple of weeks of build up, whereas Conor Murray has been there since the start. And so I think there is a certain element of choosing someone who's been in the squad, been in the environment, been around the coaches from the very beginning, knows exactly where, has the best chance, or has been involved the most in the way the Lions are planning to play and the culture they want to build. And I think that's why he's gone for Conor Murray over Mario Toji, in my view. Interesting one.
Yeah, it's a real shame that Wyn Jones has been injured, because those two, Toji and Wyn Jones, as a combination, I actually think that would have been a really good combination that could have carried the Lions through most of the Test series, at least, Paul, and I think they would have just complemented each other really well. Toji gets through so much work, and Wyn Jones with his leadership skills does the leader thing, the little things really well, and of course great line out option.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm going to be pedantic with you here now, but it's Alwyn Jones rather. So Alwyn is his first name, and Jones is his surname, and Wyn Jones is actually the prop. So yeah, easy to get the two of them mixed up from that point of view. But sorry, I mean, it's sad we've lost Alwyn out of this. As you say, he was in the number 5 jersey, so he was what's now talked about as the tight headlock. So he's sort of the more grunty of the two, which allows Marrow to be the number 4 in the number 4 jersey. Quite often, when you've seen Courtney Laws and Marrow Itoje on the pitch, Marrow might wear the number 4 jersey, but he quite often goes into the number 6 position or the blindside flanker when it comes to scrum times. He's not got quite the same necessarily the bulk that perhaps some of the other locks have, but he has got the engine and the physical and the athleticism, which is fantastic to see. So you do need. It's going to be interesting to see who will be that tight head lock, who's going to be that bulky guy that the Lions will go with, because they're going to need some weight definitely in that tight head position, behind that tight head and the hooker.
Paul, just a question for you. Billy Vunipola, did he make this team?
No, he's not in the squad.
Wow.
And I think what if you look at the way that he's gone about this way, Billy Vunipola, number one, there are certain players who you just throw into a game, you know they're going to be ready. And we've seen that from players like Sam Cane came back from injury. For example, he was back up to match speed straight away. Billy Vunipola is not one of those players. He's someone who needs game time to get himself to get himself back up to sort of match fitness and playing well. He wasn't great during the Six Nations. He's been playing at championship level, not at Premiership level, and I think those things mean that you don't pick him on a tour like this. They haven't got time to get him fit and get him up to match speed. He's a guy who's not playing enough rugby at the moment to be at his best. So that some players need games, and he's one of those, and that's why that's why he's not involved. Also, if you look at the style of eights he's picked, when you think of Tulupi Faletau, I mean Conan in this game, but also Sam Skinner, the Exeter break, who can't make the England team. He has picked much more mobile eights. If you're going to play a lock at 6, you're going to need an 8 who can get around and help the 7, because he's not going to get much help from the 6. From that point.
I actually thought back in 2017, I was impressed with the depth that they had. The British Lions, if you think back to that second test where Faletau played very, very well in that second test win down in Wellington, and to think they had somebody like Stander who couldn't make the team. I think from memory, maybe was it Sean O'Brien was their open side flanker, the Irishman.
Yep.
If I recall, so it just shows you the quality that they actually had in that particular squad at loose forward. Whether they have the same strength, gee, I'm not so sure. Tipperick is a big loss. Paulie's such an intelligent footballer, and he's probably got a little bit more size compared to Navidi.
I mean, Josh Navidi is someone that was considered a good club player, but couldn't take the next step, but has done so and has done very well. He's also a guy who can play 6, 7, 8. So he might be a fantastic number 20 rather than actually a starter. So the perfect guy for the bench, or if you've especially if you're doing a 6-2 split, maybe also good for the bench from that point of view as well. So we'll see on that point of view. The nocturnal rights mentions Hamish Watson at 7. Absolutely. Unfortunately, he suffered a concussion from a training ground injury. during the week, so we'll have to see how well he comes back. But he's still in the squad, so yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing Hamish Watson at 7 because he's really impressed me when playing for Scotland. Imagine what he's like around and don't take this the wrong way, but around a higher quality pack where he's not having to do the work for other players. And that applies to all these players to a certain degree. That their national teams are obviously going to be a level below the Lions when it comes to names on paper.
Paul, if you'd mentioned the Lions to me back in 2019 or around about the time of the Rugby World Cup, I would have sworn to you back then that the majority of the side would have pretty much come from the English team at the time. So yeah, 2 years is a very, very long time in sport, and you kind of wonder if Saracen's demise over the last couple of seasons has played maybe a big part in terms of a lot of these players that we've mentioned, Vunipola before, maybe just falling off the radar.
Yeah, look, we've got a lot of other stuff to get through. I'm just looking at the time that we spent a lot of time talking about this because, hey, we love talking about this. The first game in South Africa is at 4 a.m. on Sunday morning, New Zealand time, with the Lions versus the British and Irish Lions in that one. So good luck to the commentator in that one. I will be getting up for that game at 4 a.m. We'll do a post-match reaction at 6 a.m. I'll probably be on my own. I don't know if I'll have anyone joining me at that time of the morning, but we'll see. So I will be up watching that one. We'll do post-match reaction here on New Zealand Sports Radio. You can check that out on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter for that post-match reaction to join us for that one. Other stuff that's happening this weekend is that the Maori All Blacks will be taking on Samoa again. And I've just heard back from Dwayne Poliativo during the show that he's going to try and make some time for me to have an interview with him about his return to Samoan international rugby. So look out for that when that comes out. But they will be playing, obviously, Samoa versus the Maori All Blacks in their second build-up for Samoa ahead of their clash against Tonga for the Rugby World Cup qualifier. And also we'll have the All Blacks versus Tonga as well. That game kicks off at 7:05 on Saturday evening. Again, at 9 p.m, straight after that game, or around about 9 p.m, straight after that game, we'll bring you post-match reaction to that one as well. Nocturnal Right says, Stephen will still be up from Saturday night. I'm not sure Stephen's Saturday night party goes through till 4 a.m. anymore. Back in the day, maybe, but not nowadays. Looking ahead of that for New Zealand versus Tonga, look, I mean, you saw or you watched some of the Tonga, and you made a sort of comment on Twitter that one of the problems we've got at the moment because of COVID and travel restrictions and the 14-day quarantine is that we are seeing in the Samoa squad, in the Tonga squad, and also to a certain degree in the Fiji squad, even though they're not playing this weekend, they've got another week to get through quarantine, is a number of international players aren't available. If you've been playing in the top 14 final, you just can't get here in time for or the Gallagher Premiership final, or whatever, or even the playoffs. In some case, you can't get here in time for this. And so there are a number of players, perhaps in these squads, that wouldn't normally be selected.
Yeah, I go along with that. And listen, my tweet, and I mean this very respectfully as well. My point was, and first of all, full credit to both Samoa and Tonga for accepting these games. But sometimes you do wonder if some decisions are being made in the best interest of those particular island nations, Paul. And I did see the Tongan team, and there was an interview, and it mentioned that a lot of the boys were coming out of club rugby, and in fact the skipper Sonatani Takalua had pretty much just come out of a 14-day isolation, obviously arriving in the country and straight to training. So in effect, they probably are on a hiding to nothing. And let's not forget, it was pre-Rugby World Cup. I think they might have played the All Blacks and got beaten quite heavily down in no, sorry, beg your pardon, it was Hamilton.
In Hamilton,
yeah. I just really fear for them this weekend. Listen, I hope they give it their best, and I would imagine for those for a lot of those Tongan players to play the All Blacks is the big thing. But you kind of want them to have half a chance, and I suggested maybe Tonga should be playing Samoa, because from what I believe, they've got some Rugby World Cup qualifiers or build-up games.
Well, yes, but
coming up.
the Rugby World Cup qualifier is between Tonga and Samoa. That's the problem. So
right. Right, I should have done my research before I made that comment. Then
that's okay. Yeah, so the result between New Zealand and Tonga pre-Rugby World Cup was 92-7. So so look, let's hope we don't see that kind of scoreline. To be honest, something around the sort of 50 mark would be kind of nice. We definitely want to see Tonga get off the mark. We don't want it to be 0. And Aaron's putting here, I don't think the All Blacks have anything to gain from playing this game. Look, the other option is, at the end of the day, either the All Blacks played Pacific Island teams or they played nobody and had no games at all. One of the points on Twitter has been why the British and Irish Lions going. Actually, one of the points we should have covered off on is COVID. Why the British and Irish Lions actually continuing their tour to South Africa when South Africa have escalating COVID numbers. We've had 3 players in the South Africa camp test positive for COVID. And so I'm saying, look, surely it's time for this to be called off. Everything seems to be decided at the moment by money and tradition. And you know what, guys, money is one of the big things. And at the moment, you've got to say that money is driving a lot of these decisions. As Nocturnal Right says, Samoa turned down the All Blacks test because they didn't want an 80-0 scoreline. Tonga have accepted, and look, at the end of the day, if you only get offered a game once every 4 years, it's hard to say no. In all honesty, and we keep saying they should get more Tier 1 tests. When you get a Tier 1 test, you kind of take it, because when's your next opportunity? Even if you can't necessarily put together your best team.
Yeah, and they'll probably I suppose for the All Blacks, they're in a no-win situation. If they basically had turned down that game, they'd probably be taking a few broadside shots of why they didn't play that particular game. So something else I just thought of when you mentioned the South African tour. Hey, we've still got an Olympic Games still going ahead as well, Paul. And you can't tell me that's about the sport either.
No, I mean, again, another topic I was going to get onto later, but let's jump to that one quickly. Look, Sevens clearly has a problem because the Sevens World Series is basically a bunch of people traveling around the world playing games in different cities, which this current situation means you cannot do. Unless you're going to take all the Sevens teams, put them in one location and say, right, guys, you're all living here for 4 months and we'll have 3 tournaments or 4 tournaments over that period, you're basically not going to get any Sevens tournaments. We had a mini tournament over in Australia. I've gone blank as the name of the place now. Doesn't really matter.
Yep.
Sorry? It was the Oceania Sevens, in Townsville. Yeah, that's where it was. Between Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and an Oceania team or Pacifica team. In that the Fiji men won that one, and the Black Ferns won the women's one. Look, good preparation. You got to say Black Ferns heading into as current world HSBC World Series champions, heading into the Olympic Sevens as favourites. But boy, oh boy, yeah. Do you really want to go? To me, I would say no. But then again, look, I'm not an athlete who's put the last 5 years of my life into this one event, which is what they've done essentially. So it's easy for me to say.
Listen, I think you also saw the emotion of the Black Ferns. Was it Niall Williams? I think it was, sister of Sonny Bill Williams, when she was ruled out of the squad because of injury. You saw that raw emotion of an injury curtailing her dream. So it probably shows you what it means to a lot of these athletes. Probably what did the weekend tell us in Townsville? It probably told us that the Black Ferns are probably on track to probably go all the way, but of course we don't know what's happening with some of the other squads. And once again, Fiji are going to be hard to knock over if they have to defend their title. But I know exactly where you're coming from, Paul. I think probably the Olympic Committee still want this to go ahead. We know all the reasons why, but I suspect there are a lot of the locals in Japan. If they had it their way, they'd probably immediately put a cut to it right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So look, it is going ahead, and look, I don't. It's a very difficult decision for any athlete who wants to go, and whether they do or not, to have put this much of your life and investment into this one event means that it's very difficult for them not to go. A lot. I mean, look, it's not only it's their career; it's who they are. It's their entire being. As we saw, as you say, with Williams when she got injured, and the emotion that's come out of that. Why? Because look, a lot of it's her professional life. It's also who is she? She is a sevens rugby player. That's what that's. Now she's also a friend, a daughter, a girlfriend, wife, whatever, etc. Those other things are part of her being, but a lot of her she'll see herself as is that role. And look, I put a congratulations out to Billy. I've gone blank to his surname now. The surfer who I interviewed last year has gone ahead, and his selection for the Olympics. Yeah, congratulations, well done to him. But if personally in those shoes, in my life, where I am in my life at the moment, I would have said no. But I say I'm in a very different place to where these people are. I don't rate my self vision or self-worth isn't around being a sports person. Why? Well, because I'm not good enough, put bluntly, partially, but yeah. But there we go. So where were we? All Blacks. So yeah, Pacific Barbarians versus All Blacks in 3 tests. Look, we had the Pacific Warriors, but I think a couple of, and I talked about this with, I can't remember with Dwayne or with Junior during my interviews, my long talks with the two of them. Junior being the predecessor of Dwayne Poliotivo as the Samoan scrum half, and they liked the idea. But I got a funny feeling there was a feeling that a bit like Britain, Ireland, Scotland, Wales quite often don't like being involved as Team GB, on the idea that perhaps they'll lose their identity and they'll lose their position. I think there was probably a feeling within Samoa and Tonga, maybe Fiji as well, that if they kept up with the Pacific Warriors team, that they'd end up actually being at the Rugby World Cup as a Pacific Warriors team. They'd lose having a Tongan or a Samoan team. So I can understand why it died, and I can understand why they're not. That's a direction they don't want to go down. Where are we now then? Any other sort of comments about the All Blacks or tests here? I've got.
I suppose the interest. There's probably the potential for some new caps this weekend. A couple of players being spoken about, Finlay Christie and also Quintu Paia, maybe possible debutants on the weekend being spoken of. I suspect that's probably the opportunity if you're going to select these guys. At least give them a game, but I'm also seeing maybe a couple of guys who were selected are probably going into this little series between Tonga and Fiji with injuries as well, Paul.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm sorry to say the short-term idea from COVID problems in retrospect about the pursuit by brains, absolutely. But it's amazing how these short-term ideas become full-time ideas if you're not careful. Yeah, it's been interesting to see the selection this coming weekend. And I still think Finley Christie's will be a one-cap person, and will never get selected again. And it's been done purely so that Scotland don't cap him. But there you go. That's my personal point of view. The other international games this weekend. We've got Wales hosting Canada. We've mentioned Ireland, Japan, England are hosting the USA as well. So a number of those games. The other game, though, that I think is of particular interest will be the Springboks versus Georgia. One of two games that they've got to play ahead of the British and Irish Lions test matches, and also again the first time that the Springboks have played since the Rugby World Cup final. A bit like, as we said, Samoa haven't played since then until last weekend. Japan haven't played since then until last weekend. Tonga, I'm guessing, haven't played since then either, ahead of their play with the All Blacks. So I'll be interested in that one. I'll be honest, I won't be getting up at 5 a.m. to watch that one, but I think I'll be watching that one on replay. And that's 5 a.m. Saturday morning, folks. A point that we forgot to talk about, or that I forgot to talk about, as far as New Zealand go, is that Ian Foster was only given a 2-year contract, Stephen.
Yeah,
and that comes up at the end of the year, doesn't it?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's definitely it's probably not it's not a sign of huge confidence, shall we say, Paul? But yeah, it's for me. I actually agree with it. I actually agree with the fact that he hasn't been given a full term, because then on saying that, so it ends this year, but it still gives the opportunity for whoever's coming in two years before the World Cup. And before we all laugh, don't forget when Rassie Erasmus took over that South African team. I think he probably only took over that South African team 2 years before the Rugby World Cup.
He did, yeah, and he broke the mould. Before that, we saw teams who had been put together and been together for a long time, quite often had lost or had struggled in the Rugby World Cup and then come back. Think about the All Blacks, for example, in 2011. Obviously, they were coming back off a bad experience in the previous one. If you think about England in 2003, again, they'd been together for a long time, as had South Africa in 2007. I think I got my numbers right there. So, yeah, he broke the mould from that point of view. Simon says a 2-year contract is too long for Foster. What has he got this year? He's got, obviously, the Tonga and Fiji twice in this window. Then he'll have the Rugby Championship, followed by some November tests or spring tests overseas tour as well. What do you think he needs to have to do to get another 2 years? And it helps you haven't muted. I know you muted yourself with the dog, but we'll listen to the dog so we can hear your comments, Stephen. Unmute. You need to unmute yourself. You've muted yourself, Stephen. Please unmute.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think if you think of Foster, I don't think he's had the overall support from the public, even when he got this job. And I think a lot of that's got to do that the fact that he was part of the Hansen regime. And I think people just wanted a complete change. So I don't think he's ever had the full support. So I was a little bit surprised when he actually got the job anyway.
Also, yeah, but I mean, also he didn't have a very successful time with the Chiefs either. He didn't have any titles to bring in, but he spent 8 years with the All Blacks, and you're kind of like, well, he's a different guy to the guy who was coaching before that. But Aaron says, yeah, Foster has to win all the games, be the manner in which they are won that are important. Look, clearly he has to beat. If he loses to Tonga or Fiji in the next 3 games, he's got to go. surely. I mean, so these next 3 games are must win. Come the Rugby Championship. And I think you've got to say you'd expect he's a winning 2 games against Argentina, 2 against Australia. You'd be looking to win those, but against the Rugby World Cup champion South Africa, the Springboks, depending on how they've come out of the British and Irish Lions series, I think you'd be allowed to lose at least, but he has to win at least one of those, and then I think he needs an undefeated tour to Europe as well. So maybe 1 loss is allowed this year.
Yeah. Oh, listen, they've got a big program. They've got a big program ahead of them. So I think it was really important that he also brought some new players into the fray. I think some of that's probably happened because of injury. So yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see where this the journey of Ian Foster goes. I can't say I'm a fan. To be brutally honest, was more of a Scott Robertson fan, but hey, we'll wait and see. And like anything in life, it's standard to be corrected.
Simon says, when's Warren Gatland available for the All Blacks? Well, if the Chiefs release him straight away after the Lions, British Irish Lions, obviously. So yes, be interesting. Aaron says if he loses to Fiji, to Tonga or Fiji, he won't be coaching for the Rugby Championship. Oh, that's a big call, we'll see.
I think there might be some truth to that, to be honest.
We'll see. Yes, and there is also Simon reminds us. Yeah, there's also a pre-European game in Las Vegas at Las Vegas Raiders Stadium as well. I think there's news. There's plans at least for another game, something around there as well. So players heading overseas, we should have a quick Vince Arso and Lachlan Bashir are the 2 from this week, or the 2 big names from this week that have announced they're heading overseas. Now with Laumape and Arso going a couple of years ago, when they were the joint top try scorers in Super Rugby, you could see them being the All Blacks centre combination, and now they've gone.
Yeah, I know. Crazy how time sort of moves on. I think they've also signed one of the former Hurricanes locks as well. So I think he's gone to the same club. I just forget the guy's name. They signed about 3 players, that particular Japanese club.
But so Bashir heading overseas. Yeah, he says no hard feelings as he goes. And I know that there were lots of calls for him to be part of the All Blacks squad this year. But in all honesty, with Sam Cane and Arnie Severe ahead of him, I can't see him being a many cap All Black. Mark Abbott was the lock we're talking about.
Abbott, yes.
But he's not going from New Zealand. He's already overseas. But yeah, as far as Bashir goes, unless you want it to be a Matt Todd and be around and eventually get a couple of caps in about 8 years' time, I think heading overseas is not a bad move for Bashir. He can always come back, a bit like Kano came back, didn't he? After a couple of years and try and restate a claim. So look, why not? In all honesty, he's not going to be part of the 2023 Rugby World Cup plans. I say with Sam Cane and Arnie Surveyor there already, for my mind. So I'm no big loss there. I think the Vince Arso one I think is more interesting. He never really got an opportunity. He did get called up into the All Blacks, but broke a wrist or something, and so got injured, so wasn't selected. But yeah, a player that I think even at the Hurricanes hasn't had after that breakout season, hasn't really had the opportunities. It's been played on the wing too often. So yeah, a bit of a shame that Vince Arso perhaps hasn't reached the potential that we saw.
Did us all play a game for the All Blacks?
No, he got into the squad, but then injured his wrist, so didn't actually play.
Oh, that's probably not a bad thing. I would imagine with a bit of luck, he'd be. I would imagine Aso is either Samoan or Tongan. No.
Well, he's born in Auckland.
Yep.
Notable relatives: Akiri and Rico Awani are his cousins.
Samoan. So he's Samoan. So that means at some stage he might be available for Samoa. So with a bit of luck, we might see him in the 2023 World Cup playing for Samoa. Or then again, if he serves his residency, maybe running around in a Brave Blossoms jersey at some stage in the future, Paul.
Well, at 26, and it's now a 5-year. He'd be 31. I think doing it by residency is probably a bit of a long shot. I guess it depends on when his parents or when his or grandparents emigrated to New Zealand. But yeah, you got to say that he is potentially available for Samoa. I don't believe. Yeah, he played under 20s, which doesn't lock you in. I don't believe he's played sevens. So yeah, two caps of the Barbarians though. So maybe that locks him into the Barbarians.
Yeah. And or maybe go and play in a sevens tournament, a la Malakai Fekitoa.
No, I don't think he's. I don't think he's locked to any country. So yeah, no, he could play for Samoa, assuming that he's eligible via parents or grandparents. So yep. He played for the under-20s team of New Zealand Sevens. He's played. I don't think he's played. According to Wikipedia, I don't see him having played sevens, New Zealand sevens or All Black sevens. He played under-20s though, which under-20s doesn't lock you in. So I think he's good.
I think Patrick Osborne has played for Fiji as well.
I'll have a quick again. The rugby union player. Here we go, and yes, has got 6 caps for Fiji back in 2016. Yeah, so yes, he has played for Fiji. And he's currently over in Japan playing for Kubato Spears. There we go. That's where he is. So science is understanding under 20s you can be locked if you depends on who you play. Yeah, no, I think that was historically, but New Zealand have never used their under 20s as a second team, so therefore you don't get locked in by playing for New Zealand under 20s. But they did use the New Zealand Maori as their second team, is their official second side. Yeah. From that point, so if you play for New Zealand Maori, then you become locked in to New Zealand. Shame I think Dinsaso there could have got more opportunities. We've talked about sevens. We could talk about Club Rugby, but we've already hit the hour mark, Stephen. So the only comment I'll make is that in Thames Valley we have hit finals time. So the quarterfinals will be this weekend. Wow, the club season's nearly over.
Oh, upon us. I'll also quickly mention in Northland, it's the final round before they hit semi-finals. Of course, it's all happening. I think there's another round to go this weekend. Then I think there's quarterfinals, then semi-finals, and of course the finals we're going to be at in North Harbour. They've got quarterfinals weekend in Auckland Club Rugby. I think there's still another 2 rounds to go, and in Counties Manukau Rugby, just the final round. One of the disappointing features of Club Rugby in the Blues area, though, Paul, 4 defaulted games. That's a real issue. 2 defaulted games in the North Harbour, 1 in Northland, and of course 1 in Auckland. No doubt in one of our later shows, or maybe towards the end of the season, maybe we'll dig a little bit deeper into that. So maybe just some of the stuff that's happening at club level in New Zealand rugby just starting to bite.
Yeah, in Thames Valley we did have a game cancelled in the Bs level, but that was because a player got injured and had to be flown to hospital, and they ran out of time because of the number of times for that one. So I hope we wish him the best in his recovery for the Coromandel player there. But yes, it's thankfully here we've managed to not have too many games postponed. A couple have been through injuries to players, and also with the overlap of touch rugby, that caused some issues at the beginning of the season, which normally doesn't, but obviously COVID unfortunately hindered that season. So the knock-on effect of that kind of stuff. Stephen, absolute pleasure to have you again. Oh, we should also mention Ben Smith on his Blazer game last weekend, turning out for Club Rugby, so for his 50th appearance. So congratulations to him, and good to see him back in Club Rugby.
Yeah. Credit to his club in Japan for releasing him as well.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. And don't forget, folks, post-match reactions to the New Zealand-Tonga game. We'll also probably have the post-match reaction to the Maori All Blacks Samoa game during that. I don't think I'll do it between the two games. We'll have to see what the window is there. Also, post-match reaction to the Emirates Lions versus the British and Irish Lions as well, coming up this weekend. Also, Sunday evening at 8 p.m, we'll try and review the international rugby that we've seen and bring up to speed with all of that before we have the DrivingMaul show next weekend. We'll look forward more than backwards in there. Stephen has gone all dark, so hopefully his car battery hasn't died. Thank you, folks, and have a great week.